Welcome, my friends, to the vault. I hope you break every bone in your body, Sylvia wishes as Don leaves. Slamming the door behind him, Don tries to ignore his rough personal life and the increasingly familiar sinking feeling in his stomach. He heads toward the small park nearby. There are lots of butterflies this time, but the sparse vegetation provides little solace from the intense heat and harsh light. He tries to shake the paranoid feelings that he is being watched by everyone, but at least out here, he feels less uneasy than back there. Don spots his good friend Wayne on the park bench as planned. "Hey," Wayne smiles his familiar grin. "How you doing, bud?" he says as he hands Don a wrinkled fast food bag. Gratefully settling down on the bench, Don takes out the burger and fries, and the two friends launch into girl problem discussions. It feels good to unload. Then, Don takes a deep breath and guiltily laments, "You know, Wayne, I'm really sorry about taking your watch from the locker." "I know. Stop beating yourself up about it. Like I said before, I'm not going to hold it against you. I mean, you gave it back, right?" He displays his wrist, with watch gleaming in its proper place. "And you're not going to do it again, right? So it's done with. You're dealing with a lot, and heck, I understand." What a great pal Wayne is. He is the best, actually the only, friend Don has ever had. He munches on a limp fry. "Thanks. I think I might finally be starting to come out of this rotten depression that made me do it. You've shown me how to let bygones be bygones. I'm almost to the point where I can imagine forgiving my folks for what they put me through. One last visit to my counselor, and I'm hoping to move on with a normal life. That's where I'm headed next." He glances at the time on his own watch. "Damn, I'm gonna be late. Good thing she's so close by." Stuffing the remains of his food back in the bag, he leaps up to go. "See you at the gym at 7, invites Wayne. "Sure thing," waves Don, running off. "Good luck, pal," Wayne calls after him. Don is glad he would have Wayne to talk to again later. Soon, Don enters the clinic and is lying on the psychologist's couch. The session does not go as well as he thought it would at all. It even brings him to the point of sobbing defensively. "But I'm trying to forgive them." Her cold clinical voice derides him. "You are no way near ready for that yet. To eliminate your histrionic kleptomania, we need to get at the root of your unresolved Oedipal complex. Your psychic energy is trapped. We still have to explore much more deeply your memories, conscious and subconscious, of the travesties the various members of your family inflicted upon you, until you really feel the depths of your hate for them. Next week, we'll start again at the very beginning and try to get beneath the surface. That is all for now." Don staggers to his feet and pays the receptionist in a daze. As he closes the door behind him, he hears the psychologist snicker to her receptionist. "I'd never get rich if I actually cured any of them." To which the audience roars with laughter and applause as the house lights come up. Don always hates it when the play is over and the dull reality crashes back in. After the curtain call, Sylvia dodges two stagehands carrying the couch, rushes up to Don, and wraps her arms around him. She exclaims brightly, "Oh, Romeo, you are absolutely wonderful, so believable." He stands stiffly. What happened to her? How could she possibly expect him to trust her, now that she has turned into such a despicable shrink who is obviously out to hurt him? He looks with remorse at the lovely facade of what had briefly been his true love. "It's over," Dawn announces. "And don't act so surprised. Goodbye." Stunned, she watches him disappear in a swirling vortex of curtains as the stage scenery is demolished around her. Later that night at the gym, Dawn waits and waits, but despite the promise made in front of all those witnesses, Wayne never shows up. Returning to his apartment around 2 a.m., Dawn finds his father sitting up in the dark with an asking expression on his face. Dawn fills him in on the details, knowing well he will receive no sympathy from this emotional invalid who suffered such a traumatic loss several years ago. Dawn tries to be compassionate toward him, but it's difficult, since Dawn has been through so much himself. The best he can manage is a strained tolerance that is a balance between exasperation and a desperate clinging to the only relative he has left. After giving his dad a chance to say something, anything, remotely human, Dawn pulls himself away from the vacuum of the inept silence and throws his weary self on the rumpled bed. Gotta get away from here. Escape. Need new scenery. The ceiling's bare bulb shines on his back until noon. Dawn groans awake and slaps a few clothes into an overnight bag. He stalks past his father wordlessly. The note that Dawn has left says it all and is out the door. He jumps into his battered car and heads toward the Jersey shore, hoping that the droning of the wheels will drown out his thoughts. On the way, he passes a huge trash dump in the process of steadily expanding, heralding an ice age of garbage. After 3 hours of driving past assorted other depressing sights, without any breaks for his hungry and uncomfortable body, he heaves a sigh of relief and resumes breathing. Here at last, Wildwood. The town's scattered forest of hundreds of fake palm trees rise in an ostentatious but vapid embrace. They consist of nothing more than twisted artificial Christmas tree branches that have been crucified to the tops of inanimate poles and left to bleach under the merciless sky. Rather than palm trees, these monstrosities more closely resemble giant toilet scrub brushes sticking up in the air. Yet to Dawn, they have always been quite reassuring. They represent the possibility that harsh reality can be defied. If palm trees can survive, even thrive in New Jersey's cold, parsimonious climate, then there may be hope after all. Nowhere else for Dawn did Shakespeare's line, "All the world's a stage," ring so true. His Juliet, however, had not appreciated the town and its fabricated palms when Dawn had brought her there that summer, calling them dreadfully tacky, and I don't see why we can't stay in Cape May instead. It's so much classier there. The initial exhilaration suddenly gone, Dawn randomly pulls into the parking lot of one of the many they're all alike squat motels. It's another aspect that he likes about Wildwood. No high-rises with people continuously jumping off to shatter their already shattered lives on the unforgiving cement at his feet. He closes his eyes and after a minute opens them again to see the sight of a mixed couple walking by. Dawn soon finds himself checking into a threadbare room with a broken faucet handle. The chamber has a solitary dime store print that hangs crookedly on the wall and is nondescript except for its enormous number of ugly fly speck stains. Hiding his bag under the bed, Dawn heads for the beach. It is a bleak, overcast afternoon, colder than usual for this time of year, with the darkening sky and the ocean fighting to see which could look more gray and dreary. Lifeless sea nettles twinkle on the sodden no-man's land between earth and water. A sick joke occurs to him. What do you get if you stick your finger through a jellyfish? A jelly donut. His face cracks in spite of himself, and he is tempted to actually do it. Examined up close, though, the creatures look too gross and menacing, with their maroonish veins inside their ghostly, gelatinous flesh. It was a good gag, however, and he'd be sure to tell his dad that he does too have a sense of humor. Continuing his trudging along, Don feels his feet leaden as sand fills his shoes, matching his weighted-down mood. He just can't sort it out. If only he had a script for his life instead of this constant ad-libbing. Life had been so wonderful after he and Sylvia had fallen in love while performing in their previous play. It had been so romantic, her Juliet to his Romeo. He had shared such rapturous joy with her, but now it was as if she had become poisoned and he stabbed in the heart. And yet, she pretends nothing has changed? How could he have been fooled by her? The agony of her conniving psychiatric ploy crashes over him with the sound of every wave upon the shore. He trusted her. He trusted Wayne. How can he even trust himself? He comes to an empty, crushed carcass of a crab washed ashore by the relentless sea and turns back. Don has just finished playing 57 holes amidst chipped and cracked mini-golf props. Now that the sky is finally faded into a starless black, the car Don's been casing is in the dark, its entire body even shadowed from the pink and purple neon sign around the corner. This should be easy. The brick in Don's hand smashes through the window of the luxury sedan, and he moves to open the door, but it's rigged. The car alarm whoops in his ears as he fumbles in the glove compartment for money, a watch, anything. Nothing. Breaking into a run, he curses the damn car, damn alarm, damn owners, damn Sylvia, damn dad, damn bad luck that's kept him from playing Broadway. Suddenly, a siren in front of him descants with the accusing alarm behind. It's over, fella. Don is used to being in jail. He once starred in The Valiant, but the bars are colder than he remembers. He easily falls in with the rough crowd and gets on the bad side of the wardens almost immediately. His first week there, he helps swipe an already stolen and smuggled in bottle of vodka. Then, while his accomplice is secretly sick in his cell, Don flaunts his drunkenness in the common areas. When he's not making mischief, Don has plenty of time to reminisce about the past and the dysfunctional family he blames for this mess he's gotten into. It was some kind of weird menage a trois between a distant shell-mouthed mother and two men who were stage partners in a comedy act. Joe, the taller of the two, was sullen and wooden, alcoholic and sadistic, especially to his partner. Marion, the shorter one, was always grinning and telling jokes, and happily letting himself be used like a worthless rag. Don had not been sure for the longest time which of the two men was really his father. He had suspected it was Joe, not because he wished it so, based on any better relationship with him, quite the contrary, but simply because his mother interacted with the good-looking Joe more than with the unnaturally passive and rather odd-looking Marion. Then, one time, Marion had pointed to Don and publicly proclaimed, "That's my son! Can't you see the resemblance? Ha ha ha!" Finding out made it even harder to respect Marion as a father, especially when he did nothing to stop Joe from beating Don's mother, didn't even blink an eye, just kept right on smiling helplessly. But that abuse was nothing compared to what Joe did to Marion, locking him in a closet for long stretches of time, twisting his neck around until he screamed in agony, but half enjoying it. Don, in tears, would beg the intruder Joe to stop. "Stop it, please!" Come to think of it, though, those were about the only times Joe seemed to enjoy himself. It was an undeniably macabre childhood. Then, to top it all off, one night Joe and Marion were on stage doing their routine, with Don and his mother as part of the audience. It must have been wife joke night. Don relives it over and over, seeing his increasingly tight-lipped mother grow enraged. Suddenly, she stands up, pulls out a gun, and fires a single shot at the comedians. Marion drops to the stage floor with a hollow thud. The crowd screams. Don rushes on stage to cradle Marion in his arms, yelling, "Dad! Dad!" Only then does Joe slowly crumple to the floor beside them, a bullet hole oozing blood and bile from his chest. Don carries Marion, apparently just in catatonic shock, through the now silently staring audience. Marion hasn't even spoken since his partner's demise and his wife's indictment, leaving Don with the burden of taking care of everything. Don doesn't expect his pathetic father to visit him in jail, but he's even more surprised when Sylvia has the gall to show up. What does she want now? She gushes how glad she is that she found him, spouts some mumbo-jumbo about having figured out what might be the problem with him, and holds a newspaper clipping up to the window glass separating them. He skims through the theater review article until he reaches the part about him. Don Carpenter gives a flawlessly and strong delivery in the title role. His performance as a kleptomaniac is so moving, so convincing, that one almost believes the lives of the actor and the character have merged. So she wants to help him, she says. Help you find the real you. How dare you, Don shouts. If you expect me to trust you after what you've done, then you're crazy. Get out. Get out of my life. Please, at least talk to the prison psychologist. You could get out on an insanity plea. He can't stand it anymore and screams for the guard to take her away. Sylvia maddens Don further by calmly whispering something to the guard, who nods as they exit. Next day, guess who shows up but the jail shrink, full of probing questions. Don plays Helen Keller. After quite a while of unsuccessful interrogation, the shrink finally gets up to leave, but he doesn't look defeated. He just looks thoughtful, as if what someone had told him was true, and he's in on some kind of conspiracy. Yeah, that's what it is. Can any of these victimizing shrinks be trusted? Don sneers. He's just gonna do his time here. That evening, in the TV lounge, he spots a small crowd buzzing around an eye-catching sign posted on the bulletin board. First annual prison theatrical production. Auditions for the play are tomorrow at 10 a.m. here. Something to help pass the time. Wonder which play it's going to be. Even though it would undoubtedly just be some dopey amateur production, Don is more excited than he cares to admit. He's ready for a change, he muses, as he marks off one more day on his cell wall, before trying to fall asleep. Wonder what roles are available. Hope they have good props. It'll be nice to escape this joint. So, the next day, Don eagerly walks into the tryouts, but almost does an about-face when he sees who the director of the play is, Dr. Shrink. However, Don isn't about to let that minutia stop him. The show must go on. He lines up, gets his turn after enduring several abysmally stilted attempts by fellow prison mates, then wows them with his professional talent. Gets a lead part, of course. A priest, huh? He remembers smiling wryly at the irony upon first finding out. But now, alone in his cell studying his lines, Don feels the role is somehow his destiny. The lines burn on the page. He decides not to organize the riot tonight after all. Don's too serious of an actor. He has to do some background research to give his character depth. Where is that Bible he'd seen? Even goes to chapel on Sunday, studying the preacher, Don decides he can act much more pious than that. Play rehearsals go well, despite the novices he's forced to work with, and Don settles into a new routine. His buddies chide him about turning goody two-shoes, but he distracts them by getting them involved in setting up stage scenery and props. The guards remark what a model prisoner Don has become. Then, Sylvia comes to visit him again, and this time, Don is cordial toward her. He has forgiven her. How wonderful! She's been keeping in contact with the prison psychologist and is so happy he's responding. But he refuses to be more than just acquaintances. I'm celibate now. Inordinately aghast at this simple pronouncement, she backs away, trembling. Don's release is moved up, so naturally, the performance date gets advanced. They couldn't very well put on the play without him. At last, it's opening night. I'm praying you break a leg, maybe both your arms too, Don lightheartedly teases a co-actor. Then, butterflies, hot lights. The prison crowd is a rougher audience to ignore than usual, but the props turned out pretty decently, and he feels right at home. Thank heaven for this opportunity. Things will be different when he gets out of this hell. The day finally comes to fly. His director, the Shrink, is waiting to see Don off and is now saying something stupid and irrelevant. After all, Don feels there is nothing for which he had to be cured, temporarily or otherwise. He cuts the exceedingly annoying Shrinky-Dink off. I'll be okay. Bless you, my friend. Don is escorted beyond the wall and is finally free, out into the beautiful creation once more. He reaches home and turns the key to his own front door. His dad, in the same spot as if he hadn't moved all this time, greets Don with a weak grin. He and Marion have a long conversation, deeper than in the past, but it accomplishes nothing, since, as usual, it's all been one way. Disappointed and emotionally spent, his optimism evaporated. Don gives up on Marion and gets up to sort through the accumulated postal deliveries. He tosses the letters with Sylvia's return address in the trash, unopened. Then, he comes upon an offer to act in a Broadway musical. His dream has finally materialized. He skims through the letter excitedly. The rock opera is loosely based on the exploits of Charles Manson of the 60s, and Don would star as a crazed drug addict who murders his girlfriend while holding a nursing home hostage. Such drama, such intrigue. Don feels high just thinking about it. As he reaches for the phone to dial the number, he sees in the stack a letter from his old producer. Another offer, in a play written especially for him. What an honor. Off-Broadway, though. Don is cast as a lonely man with a tragic background, who finally realizes that he has been living an empty life of delusion, and who awakens to lead a happy family life in the end. Don lifts his eyes and looks out the window. The world swims in sunlight as tears of joy well up. In his heart, he knows that this is the role he has waited all his life for. But then he reads on, and his face grows granite with a shock his psyche cannot handle. P.S. I know you've been through some rough times lately. If money is a problem, don't worry. A colleague of mine says he would pay you a handsome sum of cash for Marion, that ventriloquist dummy your father used. You sure did inherit Joe's talented genes, rest his soul. He could almost make you believe that hunk of wood was real. What's up, guys? Ghastly Ghoul here, and thank you so much for listening. If you liked the video, it'd be great if you would click the thumbs up button, comment, and share it with your friends. Please consider joining the Ghastly Gang by hitting that subscribe button. If you would like for me to narrate your scary story, please send it to my email address below, or post it on the Free Horror Stories subreddit. Also, please follow me on Twitter and like me on Facebook. That way you can keep up to date with what's happening on the channel. The links are below. And now, we must part ways, my friends. I fear you are living on borrowed time, for you'll never truly escape from the vault.